Hiya, primates! Links to the video we react to today are in the description below. Also be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as hit the little bell to be notified whenever we go live or put out new content. It really helps us out. Thank you so much. Enjoy the show! I know nothing. I know nothing about nothing. Leo XS, show me. Teach me the ways. The ways of the waifu.
Greats, Nekomata, Rena, and Lycon. These are the 6 standard banner characters that you can choose to get in Zenless Zone 0 as a 5-star. And by choose, I mean there's a $30. Wow. There's a 40 pull pick.
Alright, now your job here is to convince me not to get the wolf, because otherwise, unless there's a good reason to get anybody else, I want the giant muscly wolf.
On what you can get from whatever it is out of this. And I guess if you want to reroll, you can do that too. But for those that don't and you just want information, I got that too. In today's video, I'm pretty much going to go over everything about these 5-star characters from a base level that you should
we got a maid waifu already?
Understand, so that you can pick the best character.
Who's the freaking grizzly bear? What the frick? Mellow waiver ride. Limited time rate up for selected. What the frick? Who's the bear?
That you want, or at least you want to try and reroll for, or if you don't reroll and you happen to get lucky or unlucky, you at least know.
She got a short tail.
More about the character that you happen to get. With that out of the way, let's get into it.
Is she one of the 5 stars?
First up, we're going to talk about Soldier 11, who for some of you may seem like an upgraded Ambi or a fire version of Ambi, but I promise you she's not. This character has fast attacks and some pretty incredible damage when you know what you're doing with her. Now, obviously, you could use her skill and then just mash slash, which is going to be your fire suppression. This is going to be able to give you a little bit of a boost. And by a little bit, I mean a decent amount. You're going to be getting anywhere between 3 to 6% of a damage increase, and that has a bunch of stacks on top of it. And then from the beta, this lasted around 10 seconds. Give or take, so it's a little bit tricky to get the timing down. But what's really cool about Soldier 11 is that she's actually more of a fighting game character than she is a mashing character. If you use her basic attack, you can actually trigger her skill without using any energy. Now this is huge for a lot of players like myself, who are pretty much good at just timing the button presses or timing the keys, whatever it is that you want to do. And so TLDR, you can basically get all the damage that you would get from her skill or ultimate after basic attacks, the enhanced version of that, just by timing her basic attacks correctly, therefore saving your...
That sounds like a lot of work for somebody who's not too smart, and I'm not too smart.
Energy for other characters or for even herself, and then you can use that when you want to switch out, switch in, and get big dick slashes. Now, as of right now, a lot of her kit is based around self-buffing mechanics. Use fire suppression and you get a 35% attack increase. Use this or that and you get 25% fire penetration. Things like that. The character overall is fun and great to play. She fits on a number of teams, especially with the newly announced Lucy and Piper. In fact, I'm pretty positive that's going to be her best team. However, I wouldn't say that Soldier 11 is my top pick for the #1 5-star out of the standards that you should choose. Next up, we have Coleta, who honestly was tied for first for me for a little bit of time until I did more testing and figuring things out and really looking at the footage and kit. Coleta is one of those characters that has some insane days build up when paired up with Ben, but when she's by herself, her days is still as strong. Or maybe not still just as strong, but it's around there. Basically, when you pair up Ben and Coleta, who's free by the way, Ben, not Coleta, she gets an over 600% multiplier towards days, which is huge. Along with being the shortest character in the game, she also has short, simple, and powerful combos that you cannot mess up. I mean, literally, it's 4 hits. If you somehow mess up 4 hits, we might need to take you off the sticks. Coleta is also one of, if not the 2nd strongest dazer in the game. At one point, she was the first, but I have some information that I'll share later on in the video, which kind of defeats that now. But she's amazing at being a flex stun character for a number of teams. What I mean by that is that you build up the days. Certain characters are proficient at doing that. These are your stun characters. Usually they have like a hammer next to their icon or their name, something like that. And so these type of characters are going to be what you want on the team to help build up that days meter really quickly so that you can get the stun multiplier, get a lot more damage percent going on, and then get your full combos activated, because when the enemy is dazed, they cannot move. That's also how you get your chain attack started. And specifically in Coleta's case, not only being able to give herself energy when she uses her EX special attacks, but her chain attack is also huge. Her quick assist attacks are also pretty big on giving her energy as well as more days. And just like other days characters in the game, anything with stun multiplier, she's going to be able to help you increase how you're getting to that point. Not to mention that her W engine is one of the best, if not the best, standard W engine in the game. Now, unlike Soldier 11, Colada will not be buffing herself in the same manner. She's not going to give herself damage percent or attack percent or even fire defense reduction or penetration, whatever it is. She doesn't do those type of things. Colada basically increases the days that she deals, and this is why I say she's one of the best, if not the best, when it comes to stunning an enemy. Basically, if you were going to be able to do, I don't know, 25% stun to an enemy, she increases that by somewhere between 30 to another 50%. It really just depends on your build, if you have the W engine or not, if you're using a W engine at all, a couple different things, but that's something that we'll get into later on. Colada is cool, and she works amazingly with Ben, who is a free character. And how could you not?
Is Ben the bear? I like the bear.
Like Ben, he's fluffy. Next up, we have Grace, baby girl. And honestly, Grace is probably one of, if not my favorite characters to play in the game. It's one of those things as a fighting game player where I like characters with movement. I like characters that have options, and I like things to be able to done on a high execution level so that I can sit there and pretend that I'm mashing buttons and I feel good about it. Grace is almost perfect for that. She's a high mobility character that stacks up Anomaly for free incredibly fast. Anomaly is going to be the elemental statuses that you have in the game. It's not as similar to elemental reactions like Genshin Impact, or even something, I can't even think of what it would be like in Starro, to be honest. Like, it's not like Break Effect at all. That's closer to the stun meter. But in this game, the Anomaly buildup is honestly easier compared to Pokemon. Like, if I'm using Poison or Freeze or Burn, there's a certain buildup that you need to do, right? So X amount of attacks or X amount of physical, for instance, application will then apply this. And so the better or more you're able to do that, the better that character is at building up Anomaly. Now, in Grace's case, and I've seen a number of guides and no one goes over this because a lot of people just don't understand how to play Grace. Grace is one of those characters where you can do anything within her basic attacks or her combo strings, and this will not be interrupted. This is very strong because another character, Rena, who we'll talk about later on, basically has the same type of kit or the same actions, passive, whatever it is that you want to call it. Now, with this in mind, this essentially means that you can do something like basic attack 1-2 special grenade, basic attack 1-2 special grenade, basic attack grenade, basic attack grenade, dodge, basic attack. It's endless, almost endless, if you will. And if you have high execution, if you're a very strong execution type player like myself, or just I'm gonna say fighting game players, right? If you play fighting games, if you do things with high execution, you'll get used to it. If you definitely play fighting games, you'll immediately click with this character. I'm not saying that you should pick Grace, but I am letting you know as a fighting game player that you will immediately gravitate towards Grace because of what she allows you to do. The high movement in the character, the anomaly build up, seeing shock every couple of seconds. Like, this character is crazy cracked when it comes to doing that. Just a few grenades, especially with a half decent anomaly build, is going to give you the shock application. Boom, the enemy shocked. And this is even better because now, thanks to CBT3, we have the new elemental, this would be an elemental reaction, Disorder. Now, what makes Grace, in my opinion, a very strong character and someone that's going to be super slept on when the game comes out is the fact that she has this high mobility with good execution or strong execution. She has an almost endless attacking motion or an endless attacking movement where she can pretty much one tap groups of mobs, elites, or anything like that. So if you add Grace as your flex character, this is going to be your anomaly character, like anything that you put on the third, right? So 2 elements, and then you add Grace. And so now Grace is going to be able to trigger Disorder almost endlessly, or just as fast as you can input the commands because of how frequent she's able to attack. She keeps moving, which means you don't have to worry about using counters and dodges and parries. And I understand that the community seems to think that Zenless is like, oh, you just mash parry when you see flash and, you know, mash dodge when you see blue. Like, yeah, you could do that, but there are definitely other ways to play the game. And a lot of the characters in the game currently take advantage of that and actually don't want you to be using parries and dodges like that because it removes them from the field. And once you really learn how to understand a character's kit or play that character, you're going to see the type of players who know how to play the game and then the type of players who just, you know, like having fun, pressing buttons, I guess. To finish off Grace, she has great switch tech opportunities to keep the fast pace of combat going. Switch tech is something that I talked about on my main channel whenever I was covering Zenless over there during the first CBT2. But switch tech basically is the, how do I explain it? Fighting game players know what I'm talking about, and Naruto players know what I'm talking about. Yeah, if you're new to the Zenless and like all of this, switch tech is basically where you can input a command for one character, they do the thing on the field, and then you immediately switch out into another character. While you're switching out, instead of the character leaving the field, they're still doing their action. So a good example of this would be if we go back to Soldier 11. Soldier 11 has her big Giga Slash where she presses her skill and then she swings the fire blade, and it has a bunch of multi hits. It's very wide arcing and it hits a lot of enemies and it does a lot of damage, right? And so it stays there for a good bit of time. You would then switch out. So you would press skill on Soldier 11, immediately switch at the start of her skill, and then the entire duration of her using skill, you are now able to play with the other character and do whatever you want. This is going to be great. And this is really going to show you different player styles or player types, right? Play styles, if you will, skill expression of certain players, because being able to utilize switch tech is going to be how you see a lot more disorders. I promise you. After that, we can go into Nekomata, which is out of all the DPS characters, Nekomata is my favorite. I think Nekomata is.
I like attacking with one character and then like switching to the next one and continuing a combo or something like that. That would be dope.
Slept on, super cracked. Physical is destructive in this game. It's OD. Assault is crazy. Basically what Assault does is it snatches a certain percentage of the enemy's HP bar. It doesn't matter what the enemy is. So hypothetically, if Assault was always going to snatch 25% of X enemy, like let's say Nekomata always did Assault, when she triggers Assault, she snatches away 25%, right? That means no matter what the HP is on the enemy, she is going to cut away 25% of their HP. And that's huge. But going into Nekomata specifically, Nekomata has something that I showed off during my streams a couple times for both CBT2 and 3, which is, I don't have a name for it, but it's basically like Vanish Tech from Naruto or Storm. And it's broken. She essentially has a full screen dash. And the way that you do this is it takes a little bit of execution. It's not hard. It's what we call plinking. And I have a video on that. I'll try and link it if I can remember to do that in the video. But you basically plink the buttons and then she's able to start up the frames of her dash. And then you cancel it into an attack. And because her dash attack already has a good distance on it anyway, what ends up happening is the game basically zips her to the enemy. So she carries the entire dash motion. She zips to the enemy with her dash attack and basically has a super extended dash attack that nobody else in the game has. This is crazy good for her, not only being a physical character, but also being a DPS character and having crazy fast attacks. If you're familiar with someone like X-23 or Wolverine from the Marvel vs. Capcom games, Nekomata plays very similar to these characters. She has I think it's her basic attack 3 and her hold attack that is going to actually give you something akin to a Berserker Barrage or Berserker Slash from the Marvel vs. Capcom game. She also has a cross slash, which is kind of like what Wolverine or someone else does, a big old X, right? They do a big X slash coming downwards, right? And she has a cross slash as her EX skill. So I've already talked about how Assault is nasty, and I've already talked about how Nekomata takes incredible advantage of that. We can also combine the fact that she has fast, powerful attacks that basically leave the enemy blitzed. She goes in between front, back, side to side, above them, below them. Nekomata has crazy good movement in all of her attacks. It's very good. And so when you're able to combine the fact that not only do you have the opportunity to stop, and I mean that literally, you don't have to mash attack in order to get what you think might be the max damage or, you know, just whatever. The reason I say this is because the game is very reactive, at least right now from the versions that I'm able to play. Some of them will just hit you. Some of them will shoot you from far away and they don't care whether or not you have interrupt resistance. They're going to find a way to get you out of that. When you're mashing attack, you don't really pay attention. You're not socially aware of everything going on the field. Nekomata is so great because not only does she have that broken vanish tech that I talked about earlier with the dash attack, but she also has the ability to control who's getting cross slashed, who's getting zipped behind when you go behind an enemy. And thanks to the properties of her dash attacks, she actually has full invulnerability when she's dashing through enemies. You pretty much just zip through them and you don't get hit. Now you're behind them, they're facing forward, and thanks to Nekomata's particular ability, she has back attack damage, right? Or multiplier. So whenever she hits someone from behind, if you have her W engine or you have, it's either a talent or they're gonna make it an Eidolon, like a copy of her. I'm not entirely too sure which one it is right now. In CBT2, it was a part of her skill. In CBT3, it was a part of the talent, so the A, B, C, D, E, F, and then it was on the weapon no matter what. But point being is that she's the only one in the game that has something like this. So whenever you do attack the enemy from behind, you actually get a huge multiplier. Now, if I'm not mistaken, during CBT2, it was something around like 45% extra damage from her kit by itself. And then when you added the weapon, it was another 35%. So totaling around like 70% extra damage whenever you do something from behind. And because she has full control over that, she's able to do that just fine. Lastly, we can go over the fact that she works great in teams that abuse switch tech. Once again, I talked about Grace right before Nekomata, who abuses switch tech or has great switch tech opportunities. Nekomata being a perfect partner for that. You add another physical character, and now you have a strong team. Soldier 11 is another character that does that. Nicole is another really good character that actually pulls attention away thanks to her gravity orb, and then Nekomata can take advantage of positioning herself to be behind the enemy at all times. So it's just a couple different things that you can think about, but as a fighting game player and someone who's very familiar with foil games, Nekomata is one of those characters that if you know how to play the game and you know how to play the character, she's easily one of the better characters to have as your DPS character, especially as a standard. Next, we can talk about Rina, who is, at this point, I guess we're now in my top two. The top two characters that I believe would be the best 5-star standards for you to choose from, given the fact that you know what you're doing. The reason I'm saying this is because you really need to take some time to understand not only the game, but the team. This is a team-based game that doesn't stress the fact that you need 3 characters. You don't need 3 on a team. You can work with 2, you can work with 1, it doesn't really matter. You can treat it like Marvel vs. Capcom, or even Skullgirls if you're familiar with that, where it just depends on how you want to play the game. Rina, in the particular case, has a very unique kit that you need to pay attention to and understand before you just slap her on a team and then expect her to do something. So as of right now, one of Rina's biggest things is her ability to provide off-field damage. Or yeah, no, I'm right, just off-field damage. Now she's great on field, but she's slow, and so you don't want to use her as a main DPS attacker. And if I'm not mistaken, they changed her to a support class instead of whatever it was before. Like a support anomaly is what she is now, I think. So she's crazy good at building up anomaly, just like Grace, but it works differently. Grace has a lot of mobility to be able to move around the enemy. Rina does not have as much mobility to move around the enemy, but for some reason she's very elusive, and it's very hard to hit this character. Again, when you know what you're doing, you need to be socially aware when you're playing this character. The main thing that you're going to hear people talk about when it comes to Rina is the fact that she has penetration ratio for the entire team. She has a penetration ratio bonus for the entire team when her dolls are out on the field. Now, they don't stay out permanently. It's not something like, I don't even know how to think of this in another game, but I think maybe in Farina, right? If I played Farina for a little bit in Genshin, and Farina has her little water puppets or something like that, puppeteers, and they're out for X period of time. Rina's puppets are the same way. The difference is Rina can control when the puppets stay and go. You can't do this off field, however, which requires you to now perform execution or high execution in order to keep this up. Obviously, you're not going to do this if you're mashing. It's impossible. There's no way for you to be able to mash this character out or mash out your team, mash out your attacks, and still keep up this penetration ratio buff. And I'm stressing the penetration ratio buff because during CBT2, penetration ratio was actually stronger than crit rate. Crit values were still crit values, but what penetration rate does is essentially ignore defense. It's basically a defense ignore, right? And that's like the biggest thing that makes Rina as strong as she is, or why people will say she's as strong as she is. She's also for high execution players, like I said, which pretty much make that penetration ratio permanent. Shock Anomaly is fantastic. She builds this up crazy good, just like Grace. And because Shock Anomaly has the disorder trigger, with Shock and the way that that works, or where the disorder works, elemental reactions happen after the disorder. I think that's the part that I didn't explain earlier. Last about Rina is that she's a slow, methodical attacking type of character with a good kit, which allows you to focus on well-paced attacks, and it allows you to pay attention to the screen, or social awareness, right? And then last but not least, we have Lycan. Now, Lycan was also the tie for first that I had when it comes to like the best character that I think you should be looking for when it comes to Zenless Zone Zero's 5-star standards. But honestly, it's still between Lycan and Rina. Like at first it was Lycan and Coleta. I think now it's Lycan and Rina. I have a lot more value in Rina than I do Coleta, but that's not to say that Coleta isn't like up there, right? Like all of these standard characters are so good that if you get one, you really have to hate the character. Me personally, I really don't like Coleta's gameplay. So if I got Coleta, I would want to reroll. And that's why I'm saying it the way that I'm saying it. But I understand Coleta's value, but this isn't her panel anymore. This is about Lycan. Lycan has the best daze combos in the game from what I've been able to do. Now, again, as a fighting game player, I'm looking for combos. I'm looking for meter buildup, meter management, and overall skill expression. Lycan has easy to use combos that are simple and effective. And they also have good variations. What I mean by that is he has the regular basic attacks, and then he has these hold or charged basic attacks. And those also happen to his skill. So now you're able to do mixtures of fast attack, slow attack, fast attack, all slow attack, whatever the case may be. And you might be thinking like, what's the point of that? Like, why wouldn't you just use one or the other? And well, it's because they have different multipliers. Some of those kicks have higher damage values. Some of the kicks have higher days values. Some of the kicks start up faster, and most of the charge attacks start up slower. So really, it really just comes down to like playing with the character and figuring out how you want to do it. I wouldn't say like there's a best do this and do that, because I've found routes that give you both results from, you know, full charged or not full charged and half charged, whatever. Doesn't really matter. But with all of that in mind, and talking about the combos being as simple as they are with good variations, I say this because that allows him to basically one-tap an enemy's days bar. You're not going to be doing this to any elite with just Lycan, at least not as easily. You need some meter and a couple different, you need some stuff. But when it comes to just team play overall, any mob, Lycan can one-tap them just like that. They're dazed. Any mini boss or mini elite, the ones that look like bosses but they're not actually full-on bosses, Lycan can one-tap them with one really strong combo. If you know your day's combos with this character, he's gonna one-tap them no problem. You're gonna immediately start your chain attacks, and then that's how you get your big dick damage with your maximum B&B combos or whatever it is that you want. And when you're fighting the Giga Elite bosses, when you have good team structure and you know your team very well and you know how to play them, when to switch out, quick assist, switch tech, who's parrying, who's not parrying, when you're taking advantage of another character being on the field versus when you're taking advantage of Lycan just coming out some kicks and then going away. If you're playing freeze comp, if you're not playing freeze comp, there's so many different things that go into the full-on team structure of a character, which is why I didn't want to go over that all in this video. It'd be like 2 hours long. With Lycan in particular, Ellen being the first banner, the limited banner character that we have, he is an amazing partner for her, if not the best partner for her. So if you're going for Ellen, you 100% want to shoot for Lycan as your 5-star character. So overall, I'd say that I did a pretty round-up job of giving you an explanation. I feel like this was really long, and I didn't intend for it to be really long. It's just that you guys can tell that I'm pretty passionate, and then I talk and study, and I know a lot. At least I feel like I know a lot about the game. So we kind of go from there. But to round it all up, Lycan is the #1 character that I would say to go for, especially if you're going for Ellen. Now, a lot of these have variations. They differ depending on what you're going for. If you don't care about Ellen and you're saving up for Zhuyan, for instance, then none of these characters matter to you. However, if you are saving up for Zhuyan, I would 100% look at a stun character. So you probably still want to go for Lycan or even Coleta. Coleta is very strong. She's going to get the job done too. And then having your Ether on top of Burn for your disorders is a very strong combo. It really just depends on what you're looking for and who you want to play with. If you like high mobility, go for Grace. If you really value the penetration ratio, go for Arena. And if you care about the entire thing that I care about, which is basically X23 or anything Wolverine, then you're absolutely going to go for Nekomata. And like, technically, if you play fight stick or hitbox like me, because the stick part doesn't work, but the buttons do, then you could play Soldier 11 and just time everything really, really well. Guys, let me know if you enjoyed today's video. Do leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe, because we're trying to grow. Yeah, that feels different to say. I can't say my usual outro because it's inappropriate for YouTube. Smell you later.
Fritz, this video is more of a rant about something I've been thinking.
Hold on, chill.
Soldier 11.
Great video, my dude. I'm gonna drop you a like and a sub. I don't know why we're freaking lagging out here, YouTube. Thank you so much, primates, for watching this all the way to the end. Also, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as hit the little bell for a rainbow explosion that will go ahead and notify you every single time we go live or put out new content. Thank you so much, goodbye, and thanks for swinging by.